On this episode of Dead Last, we are celebrating the holidays. And, whenever people talk about the holidays, it usually involves spending time with family and going to places we don't necessarily want to go. So we're doing that right here since we're on our way to Amityville. As you guys know, there's like 50 plus movies now. I think they have the word Amityville in the title. I think it's up to 50. But I didn't go that route because I wanted to be Santa and not Satan. Normally I want to be Satan, but in this instance I'm going to be Santa. So I stuck to the films that are more or less considered official, although there's one or two exceptions here. So this is the list that we went with. It's basically like the core franchise. But there's a few others in there, and of course I threw Amityville Christmas Vacation on there since it was the Fangoria Best Amityville Film of 2022, and well, it's Christmas. And as usual, I sent that list out to my patrons, and I had them rank them up with their favorite at number one and their least favorite in dead last. Here, 12th place, and I tallied up all of those scores to give us this ranking that we're gonna see here. And these guys answered the call. So I had 32 rankings in total. That means that the best score a film could have would be 32 points. And the worst that it could have would be 384. One movie I didn't include was the last Amityville movie. I just didn't feel like that was fair to the other movies. But I have help with me here today to help me rank these up because I figured who understands the Amityville saga more than those that have actually been there or at least made Amityville movies. So I have with me today a panel of directors of several other Amityville films. That's right. These are your panel. First up, let's go to Enrico Cotto. Cotto?
Kudo.
Kudo.
It's all good.
Enrique directed the classic Amityville No Escape and was one of the kind of earliest unofficial ones, right?
Yeah, that was right at the beginning of that all ginning up. You had Fred Ray and Mark Polonia's Amityville Death House, and you had the one Amityville film that the Asylum made, but there hadn't been much on the market yet, and it was a race to get to the marketplace because it was still somewhat of a secret that you could use the title. It hadn't like gotten out, so we shot the film under a different title to keep it quiet, and we didn't actually label it Amityville No Escape until the moment we had submitted it to release through the distributor.
And you've got plenty of stuff going on right now. I know you got some podcasts, you're still doing movies and everything. And you told me a website where you can go and find that, right?
Yes, a very prudent website called incrediblyhandsome.com is where you can find out everything about the films I produce, direct, and distribute, as well as the podcasts that I produce and host. Everything is there, and it's fun to type in and have in your search history.
Coming up next, we're going to go in order of release. And the next one that you're going to find is, and this is very important because we have Calvin Morier McCarthy coming on board. And you directed, very important to get this in there, an Amityville Poltergeist. Not Amityville Poltergeist, an Amityville Poltergeist.
Really separates it out, makes it quite a bit different, doesn't it?
You made this, and that was sort of it was kind of before the boom of Amityville movies, but it was like after it sort of had become a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely aware of it becoming a thing. I own and operate 7th Street Productions, which is a small production company based in the Northwest. We make a lot of horror films for different distributors. We had made a film called Don't Sleep for really cheap and decided to sell it to a distributor. And they said, well, it needs a punchier title. And I immediately went to Amityville, threw Poltergeist on it to get the most bang for my buck. And it seemed to work out fairly well.
You've got other things that are coming up, and I know you mentioned one or two things that you have coming up just very soon here, right?
Yeah, in January, 7th Street Productions is getting into principal production on a film called The Lizzie Borden Game, which will be released through Breaking Glass Pictures. And I'm also currently in pre-production on a larger project that I've teamed up with two really great producers, Brad Littlefield and Randy Killenberg. And it's a remake of a Japanese horror film called Late Bloomer. So check that out. There's some press coming out about that project.
And last but not least, we've got a guy whose Amityville movie isn't out yet, but will be out very soon because we've got Paul Tucker, who is the director of the upcoming Amityville NATO.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. It's my first movie that people are actually going to. I've made movies before, but no one has seen them. They're horrible. But I think this one's good enough to show people. So,
And Paul also has an amazing podcast that I've actually done an appearance on that is Amityville based, right?
yeah, it's me and Sonny. We both love the Amityville movies, and so we just try to watch them all. But they come out faster than we can watch them.
Well, and it's called For God's Sakes, Get Out, which if it's available on all of the podcast outlets, and you got to go check that out. All right, but let's get down to it. Let's head on over. I've got our tickets to Long Island. Let's see how this all flies. Uh, you get it? I said flies because of the fly. All right, coming in at dead last. Honestly, it could have been like a number of movies here because I had no clue how any of this was going to shake out. But with 303 points, about 81 less than having a complete streak, we have the 2023 Amityville Curse, the newest entry on this
Wow.
list. That's right.
Yeah.
It was put in dead last 7 times, so about 22% of the time it was in dead last. The best score that it got was one second place vote. It got that one time. I had this one in 10th place, and it's mainly because it's just dull. Like my issue in the later movies, kind of the ones after like the classics, uh, and as we're gonna see when I talk about most of the newer ones, is just how sterile and bland that they all feel. And this one is just like that. Like everything is so well lit, and I don't mean like, hey, it looks good. I mean that there's no mood, there's no tone or atmosphere. Everything looks flat. Plus, they wanted to throw in some twists near the ending of it and have this whole "who can you trust" vibe, like who's possessed. But then everything just felt overly convoluted, and I just honestly I didn't know the characters well enough to be that interested in who actually was possessed. So I don't know, I just didn't care for it. I didn't hate this one. I didn't have this one in my dead last, but I will tell you that I barely remember anything about it. Not much at all.
So the Amityville Curse from 2023 is technically a remake of the Amityville Curse from 1990, which in my opinion is the most dull and boring of that original run. And I feel like the remake is true to that in that it's a remake of my least favorite Amityville movie. So therefore, it would be slightly less my favorite because it doesn't have nostalgia working for it. It does. It looks kind of like a TV commercial. It's lit very flat. It's very matter of fact. I appreciate that I felt like they were trying to make a horror film. I appreciate when people aren't afraid to throw melodrama at the wall and not be afraid to look silly or stupid. I always say it's very easy to wink at the camera. It's very hard to try to make tears come out. So I appreciate what they did, and the cast I think did the best they could. But yeah, not a fan of the original or the remake per se.
I like this movie. I thought it was fun. I thought it had, first of all, juicy drama. Give me the juicy drama, even if it's corny. I just love it. I'm there. I'm just like shoving popcorn in my mouth. Dude, it's awesome. But it had like this really cool idea towards the end. It was kind of like Wes Craven's The New Nightmare almost, where it's like, well, all these Amityville movies and books are out, but so if enough people believe in it, it becomes real. Like, I thought that was kind of a cool idea. You know, it's been done before, but not in the Amityville movie. And so I really dug that too. I, I thought it was a fun flick.
It's funny. I'm kind of split in the middle. I actually like the original Amityville Curse. So there's already a little bit of this. What's the point of remaking it? It's just weird to remake that movie. And then also, I think that the thing that kind of works against it is I think that the movie is shot well. I think that the movie looks good. It's a really competent crew. I mean, but I think that that sort of works against it because as we get all of these Amityville sequels that come out, they get wilder and crazier and funnier. And this one just takes itself so seriously. It's not fun enough to laugh at, and it's not good enough to really be memorable. In fact, when you told me to write the list, I left it out. You had to write me back and say, what about Amityville Curse? Yeah, it's just a very forgettable one for me. It's unfortunate because I will reiterate, I think that it looks good.
Interesting. Interesting? That's not the word I'd use.
Okay, our number 11 film was pretty close in points. It was only 10 less, with 293. So I wouldn't call it a close race for dead last, but it was somewhat close. But oddly enough, it's the 1990 version of the Amityville Curse. So I guess
Oh,
this is just a story that people don't dig. It did get quite a few dead last votes though, since it was only put there twice. Only two people had it in dead last, but it just had overall lower scores in general, and the best ranking it got was only one fourth place vote, and that person was Calvin.
I have very fond memories of renting this movie on VHS and watching it at a very young age. I loved the Amityville movies, the original series. I consider this to be canon. That original series. I just really I enjoyed the end of the movie. I thought that it ramped up pretty well. The imagery of the guy hanging from the tree, I always thought was really scary when I was a kid. It's not a fantastic movie, but I have a lot of fond memories of it. It's kind of a comfort food movie for me, and I think it's overall a fairly decent haunted house movie, and that's sort of how you have to go about some of these canon Amityville films that aren't really canon. You just have to think of them in terms of being kind of a fun haunted house romp. And I think this one does overall a pretty good job of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was kind of dull and boring. I liked the characters. Miss Moriarty, she's awesome. She's she's the best character. Frank is cool. I just thought it was kind of boring and dull, kind of like what you were saying. Like that's worse. That's like the worst thing your movie can be. The ending is cool though, where they're like fighting, like he's like kind of turned into a zombie or something, and they're like
Yeah,
throwing
the
power
makeup
tools
is
at
good.
him. That part's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
so the ending is great. I just think like the first like hour is kind of just like dull.
I thought it was actually a lot of fun and I enjoyed it. And it's mainly just my memories of watching it from back in the day. Um, but look, I, I have to rank this higher just based on the whole Marvin thing. I pointed this out before in a couple of videos, but there's a character called Marvin in the movie. And for whatever reason, anytime someone is talking to him or about him or whatever, they feel the need to say his name. So then, like, if someone is talking to him, instead of just being like, "Hey, can you go take out the trash?" It's Marvin. Can you go take out the trash, Marvin? And I think the name Marvin is said like 300 times over the course of the film. Every time I watch it, that is just hilarious to me. And I love watching this movie just to count the Marvins. And now I hope that you want to go back and rewatch the movie and just see how many times the word Marvin is said. And which is another reason why I ranked the 2023 remake so low, is because they've changed his name to Marv. So screw them.
I think that, when it comes to that first 8 Amityville films, the worst one it's like the worst slice of pizza in your town. It's probably still pretty good. You're not going to be mad it's on your plate. And I don't think Amityville, like, it really is, like, compared to what? Well, compared to some of the other ones, it's really not that great. But would you watch it? Of course. And that was the hardest part of this ranking, was really picking the ones I like the least, because I've always had so much fun with the series. There's so much to do with haunted houses that is a good time. But Amityville Curse, unfortunately, just, if it had a stronger first act, I think I would like it a lot more. But the actors in it are really great, and yeah, the finale of the film is highly memorable. So I would never put that dead last ever. But yeah, in a world of kings, it is a prince.
Marvin. Marvin. Marvin.
Marvin. Marvin. Marvin? Yeah, Marvin. 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 Marvin.
What is it, Marvin?
What?
Marvin.
Let's go on now to our number 10 film, and it was a bigger drop down as we go all the way down to 261 points, 32 less than Curse. And it's another of the new batch, and it's the much delayed Amityville Awakening. This was put into dead last 3 times, one more than Curse 90, and the best score that it got was second place. It was put there 1 time.
Again, I just think it was boring. I mean, it's like they took an AI and made a generic. They were like, make an Amityville movie. It's just there's nothing like that really stands out to me or anything. No.
I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. I found it to be very creepy. The whole element of a family member being very, very ill upset me quite a bit, which kind of kept me in there. There's that whole sequence where he's like cracking his bones in his body. I think what hurt it, though, was the wait. I think that it made us expect something really exciting, and then it turned out to not even technically be an official canon. They ended up getting like an injunction or something filed against the Weinstein Company because they were promoting this as like an official Amityville movie, which is the thing you don't do. You don't use the O word when you're making these movies. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it has. I think it has a little bit of a bad rep. I like it. I think it was a fun one. I'd watch it again on a dark night. If it was storming outside, I think it'd creep me out.
I was pretty excited for it, actually. When they were making, I thought the trailer looked good. I'm a big, other than being a huge horror fan, I also do really like the show Shameless. So I was excited that Cameron Monaghan, whatever his name is, was in it, and I was on board with it. There were a couple of weird little touches that really started to ruin it for me, though. Making the Amityville movies a thing within the universe kind of bugged me a little bit. Aren't they? They're like watching the original Amityville horror. Like, there were just little things like that that just started losing me as I went through. But I did enjoy it for the most part, and I think that the concept, once again, is great. The invalid family member moving into a haunted house because it's cheap, and then it is able to get this bedridden person to be possessed, and there's so much there to work with. So,
Well, believe it or not, I had this the lowest out of all of us because I had it in 11th place. And most of the same reasons I said about the 23 Curse, and it's just because it's so standard and bland, and it just feels very like Hollywood typical kind of Blumhouse style horror movie. I forgot about it like right after I watched it. I may possibly have even forgot about it while I was watching it. And I actually thought, like, when I thought it was cool when they did that whole thing of like, oh, look, have you ever seen the Amityville Horror? And it's like this whole meta aspect. But yeah, then they didn't even do anything with that. Like, I don't know what the whole point of even bringing it up was. But I guess if there was a point to the movie, The point was, hey, look at Bella Thorne's ass. Because that thing should have gotten top billing on the poster. Should have just said Bella Thorne's ass in Amityville Awakening, because that got almost as much exposure as Market Qualley's in the substance. Okay, let's go into the single digits now. And this next one was probably the most interesting one. This was the one where, as the rankings were coming in, it was like, all right, this is spicy because our number nine ranked film with 243 points, 18 less than Awakening, we have the most unofficial one here, Amityville Christmas Vacation. It was put into dead last 10 times, almost a third of the time, the most that any movie was put into dead last. But it was also put into first place three times and had a number of other high scores. So that should show you how split people were on this one. I mean, it was the dead last three more times than our actual dead last winner, and it's three places ahead of it.
And I have to give full disclosure. I didn't just put it in dead last because I think it's not very good or not entertaining. I am lifelong nearly friends with the director, Steve Rudzinski. So I really felt like it would be unfair to rank him any more than that. I really do. I think that it's not a fair competition for a movie like Amityville Christmas Vacation. It's a lark of a film, really silly, lots of a big sense of humor, short run time. But I get why it's so. I definitely get why it's so divisive. I love that. I love that it was ranked dead last a ton and then ranked dead first a ton. And I believe it because, in the immortal words of Abraham Lincoln, that is the kind of thing you like if you like that kind of thing. That is Amityville Christmas Vacation.
I guess I'm the kind that likes that kind of thing because I had it in eighth place. I couldn't put it too high, but I did. I thought it was actually quite a bit of fun. It's silly enough. It's entertaining enough. I like that it actually had a little bit of a heart to it. I don't think all of the humor works. Like I think some of it falls a little flat. I don't think a lot of the staging works. Some of that falls flat. But whenever I watch movies that are this low of budget and the things that show the effort always shine through for me, and I liked the effort that I saw in this one, and it's just kind of that silly fun that I really enjoy. And I get like this is one I totally understand why people had it so low. I get it. Like I get it. I just couldn't do it, so it got eighth place for me.
I have the same sort of sentiment. It didn't stand a chance on the list, unfortunately. And just with my personal tastes when it comes to horror movies in general, I tend to like, even if it's at a low budget, something that it is a bit more serious. I'm more of a fan of traditional horror films than like a horror comedy. And this was the one horror comedy that was there. But I think that anything, other than maybe something like Amityville, Mount Misery Road or something, most of them that are taking themselves seriously and trying to be scary, I think I'll just always rank a little higher than a horror comedy just based on my tastes. Yeah, it just didn't stand a chance for me. It kind of had to go in last place.
I kind of wish I would have put it higher, to be honest. Now that my partner wanted to watch a holiday horror movie, so we put it on today, and I rewatched it, and I just love it. It's so charming, and like, you got the lovable idiot, like kind of bumbling around. He doesn't understand that there's a ghost. Like, it's cute. It's a cute movie, and it just makes me smile for like what is it, 40 minutes? It's just it's fun. It doesn't overstay its welcome too, which is great. And it's I just always love watching movies that it looks like something that like someone and their friends just made, like they just made it. Like anyone can make a movie, and that's wonderful. And this is one of those movies that it just warms my heart, as corny as it sounds. Like it's just a great flick.
Well, there's almost nothing more special than Christmas.
Almost nothing? You mean you think there's something more special than Christmas?
Yeah. You.
All right. Well, speaking of movies that had a fairly split opinion, our number 8 movie was another one with a lot of low scores and a number of high ones because with 231 points, it's the 2005 remake of the Amityville Horror. This got 5 dead last votes, so 16% of the scores, but it also got first place twice. And yeah, I was one of the ones that put it in dead last because I hate this movie. Here's a confession. For all of the talk about how they don't make horror like they used to and all that crap, which I hate when people say that. I think horror flicks are actually pretty solid nowadays. I think there's actually some really good horror that's coming out in the past like decade or so. And if I had to pick an era that I most disliked, like everything that they were doing, it was this mid 2000s era. And this movie is 100% everything that I hated about that time frame in horror. The look of it, the feel, the way they show the ghosts in this one. It's like I don't want to see that. And then plus I'll talk about my issues with the original one in a little while, but there's something that strikes me as obnoxious with casting Ryan Reynolds as George Lutz. Like I want to rank it higher just for like the ab quality alone. Like the real guy, like the real George Lutz probably couldn't even spell ab, let alone have any.
I'm not a big fan of this movie. When I first saw it, when it first came out, I hated it. I hated everything about it. Yes, Ryan Reynolds is totally miscast in a play. It's a terrible role for him. I feel the same way as I feel about the remake of the Amityville Curse. What's the point? Why remake it? I know that everyone was remaking stuff around that time. It reeks of that time period, that kind of early 2000s. It's not a great movie. I don't think it's a terrible movie. I can watch it. I that's why it ended up in ninth for me. It's just I have no real strong opinion of it either way, just like Amityville Curse. So I mean, it had to go somewhere. It's got so many things working against it.
We call it on our podcast Amityville 666 pack because I mean that's just ridiculous, dude. Yeah, I mean, there was like Platinum Dunes, I think, is who did this or put this out, and they did like they were doing I believe like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes, and I liked all those. I mean, they weren't good, but I liked them. This I just thought was like, or in the ghost effect, like I don't know, it was just not good. It wasn't for me.
I was surprised how much I liked it. I was surprised how much I felt like the atmosphere and the tone and the scares worked on me. And I was surprised how much I felt like they didn't tread exactly where the original film did, so much that I was bored. I liked Ryan Reynolds in the part. I just find him so likable. And it's true. I named every one of his abs individually because you see them so much in the film. But for me, it just worked. And I think that era, that 2000s, mid 2000s era, has actually aged surprisingly well. I've been revisiting a lot of that stuff, like the House of Wax remake, which is basically a tourist trap remake, but I still, got a real kick out of it. So I think that era has a lot that I really do think has aged well, but also makes me feel very old to think, like, when I look all the way back at the movies that came out when I was 18, I don't know. For me, it worked. I enjoyed it. I found it tense and scary. So, but again, so I feel like perfect to be right in the middle of my list.
God damn it, Harry.
All right, our number 7 movie here was not as split as those last couple, although it was still fairly diverse with its scores, but it was more consistent in the middle since it was kind coming in at 211 points. And it's Amityville, A New Generation. This one did get a single dead last vote, just one dead last vote, but it got one first place vote as well.
This movie rules. Like every from the second it starts all the way, it even through the credits, the ending credit song rules. This movie just rules. I mean, I don't know. It's like my high school. I mean, it just like it's probably nostalgia, but I mean, it's just I love it. I saw it when I was like, when it came out, probably I was in high school, and it just like stuck with me. And I like the characters. I like they're like in this art commune place, and they're drinking coffee, and they're so I thought they were all so cool. Like it's awesome. There's some cool kills in it. Like I liked it. It was fun.
Talk about horror film eras that I think aged well. I actually think the early 90s, I think that look has aged really well. And, I'm sure we'll get to them, or we'll get to them later, but there are some that I really like from around that time period. The only problem with this one is, for me, for whatever reason, it becomes a little bit forgettable. This one and The Evil Escapes. I flip flop both of those as far as like what happens in the movie. Yeah, the setting is fun, the mirror is fun. They it could have just been its own movie, and it probably should have been. Is probably how I feel about it. Just less memorable to me. I'm a little less high on this movie compared to some of the other Amityville sequels that were coming out around that time. Yeah, I just kind of feel like it's a middle of the pack sort of movie.
First of all, I love the concept of the cursed objects leaving the house. It's so ridiculous and I love it. But with A New Generation, there's this kind of era of 90s horror, but there are these sparse horror movies that came out in the 90s that I started calling loft horror. Because like Witchboard 2, it's in a loft. Amityville, A New Generation, it's in a loft. Some producer or something was like, I'll put a few more bucks in, but can you get a loft in there? I love lofts. For me, that kind of 90s era LA low budget horror sequel is super, super cozy. And I thought it got really clever later on and really dark later on in a way I really liked as well. So I think I think nostalgia helps this one immensely, makes it really stand out for me. But I think this one is just a ton of fun and a great time capsule of an era of low budget, Los Angeles lensed horror films.
You know what it is that I really like about this one? It's because when you're watching the whole series in a row, and I remember watching it like when they came out and everything, and this was the first one that really shook things up a little bit because they had been doing the haunted relics already. Like there had been a couple of this is the haunted, but they were always in a house. It was always just like a suburban house. And here, yeah, you're in a different kind of location. Like not only are you in a loft, which apparently is, essential, but you're in downtown Los Angeles, which just has a whole different feel than any of the other suburban vibes that you got from the entire rest of the series. So it feels fresh in that way. And then, I mean, then you're giving me David Naughton, which I'm happy. You're giving me Richard Roundtree, which, yeah, please. And then you're even giving me Grady. I mean, like he pops in there to do his thing for like a couple of minutes. So I like that whole cast. And I think I knocked up a touch just for that. But there you go.
7 years, bad luck.
All right, we're moving on to the top half of the list now. So yeah, we're getting on to our number 6 film here. And this one was somewhat close since it was only 7 points less between A New Generation and this one. It was also close in terms of release since with 204 points, it's Amityville Dollhouse. This, much like A New Generation, only got one dead last vote, but it didn't get any first place nods. And the highest that it got was 3rd place, but it got that 4 times.
That cover is incredible. That VHS cover. I have it up in my collection. It was one of the first things that I actually dropped some money on, getting like a good pristine copy of it. Yeah, I thought the gags in it were a lot of fun, right? There's the tarantula gag, there's the rat in the dollhouse gag, the dead war hero dad coming back to life. I think is a fun concept. It reminds me of House a little bit, that Sean Cunningham film, but it's towing that line. It's not outright trying to be a comedy. It just is comedic gold, just by happenstance. And I don't think you can set out to do something like that. It was a ridiculous idea that they never should have done. Someone at the studio took a blow to the head before greenlighting this movie. And thank God.
I think Amityville Dollhouse is a ton of fun. I love the element of bringing a child into the story, having that kind of poltergeist kind of feel going there. I love the location. I love that it's in like a kind of more secluded desert house. It's a little different. It gives you a little bit of a different vibe. I love the image of an Amityville dollhouse. That's probably the biggest thing. There's nothing as cool as a literal dollhouse of the Amityville house. I've always loved just that idea of the dollhouse. I love all the gags with things going into the dollhouse and them becoming real and giant in the main house. I like the ending. I like the adventure of the parents trying to save her. I like that it gets real cornball and cheesy. All of that works for me so much. And I love that basically Dollhouse is the end of that original run. I think that's a really strong ending. I really do.
I also had this in fifth place, so I'm with you on that. And I know I've already said that I liked that run of like the haunted object movies. It was kind of like that sweet spot for me. So I'll just say that again. But there's something about this one that I do like, even if it does drag at times. Like I also like that it took all the other stuff from the other Amityville movies, and it felt like it just kind of like tossed it into a blender. So you got like some demons, you got to have some incest in there. And then you have this like wacky occult couple that comes in there. It's like what is that aunt and uncle? What is their whole gig going? Like they're pretty awesome. Is this a great movie? No. Is it a good movie? Probably not. Is this a movie that I enjoy? Yeah, yeah. And I mean, plus, it had Star Andreef in it, and I don't know why. But 90s Josh liked him some Star Andreef.
I liked it. I think the last three movies they did, they're kind of all like interchangeable to me, like depending on my mood of the day, which one I like the best. But I like all three of them so much. And it's just a fun, crazy. I don't know what else to say that y'all haven't already said. I think there's like they changed out the flies to like a wasp or something. I think it's this one, so that was cool. I thought the giant rat thing, the special effects were cool. Like the zombie dead makeup guy, looked cool. There was like a gargoyle at the end that I'm pretty sure is like the same gargoyle from Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. It looks identical to it, and I'm pretty sure they used like props from other movies. I'm convinced it is.
Hey, next time. That's just rude.
All right. Well, our number 5 film was also somewhat close in points. Not like too close, but we only dropped down 11 points to 193. So we're now under the 200-point mark. And this is from the same little block of films, since it is Amityville: The Evil Escapes, or possibly Amityville 4: The Evil Escapes, whatever they want to call it. But this one was put into dead last twice. But it was also put into first place one time, so it did get one first place vote.
I love The Evil Escapes. I do. I don't think it can beat out the better made, less TV movie, because it is literally the one TV movie in this whole series. I think that as far as rewatchability and laugh with your friends and eat pizza ability, this one is very high ranked. Plus, I mean, it has one of the most terrifying concepts in all of cinema, which is lamps. Do you see this thing? Terrifying.
I'm
Are
scared.
you afraid? every, every time the movie cuts to the lamp and like swells the music up, I lose it. It just kills me. Lamp. If I were a little bit older and I had caught that at 9 p.m. while I was getting a little sleepy on TV, I would have stayed up the whole night to watch it. I would have been somewhat scared and always entertained. So as much as I couldn't really justify putting it lower than 8, I think there's a lot to like about The Evil Escapes. I really do.
Obviously, as the 90s went on and they kind of went along with this cursed object or dollhouse or whatever, um, they sort of figured it out. They figured out the tongue-in-cheek nature to it. It's not outright funny. It's still trying to do certain things. This one is just so serious. It's just taking itself so seriously. It's the one that I think has the least rewatchability to it. I remember liking it a lot when I was a kid and thinking that it was spooky. Yeah, it's just not my favorite. I know that there's a lot of nostalgia for it. The lamp design is cool. They were really trying to go for something and taking it really seriously. And I think that that's probably what hurts it the most.
It's not good. It's not good. But I remember going to my grandmother's house, and she probably put it on because Patty Duke was in it. But I remember watching this. Like, I mean, I must have been like 10 or something, you know. I remember watching this and just like loving it, you know. And I never knew what movie it was. I just remember there was like this lamp, and they throw it out the window, and like there's a cat. Like I just remember like little scenes, you know. And then when I got to be older, I realized it was an Amityville movie, and I watched it again, and it has like Troll 2 vibes almost, if that makes sense. Like they're trying, and Patty Duke is great, but like the son, oh boy, that guy is not a good actor. I would, I don't know if it exists, but if there's like a widescreen version of this, I would love to see that.
Well, I am like Paul because I have this in my third place. That's right. This is my third place pick, and now I have to justify that. I can't. I can't do that. I don't know why I have this up so high, and I don't know why I love this movie so much. This one to me is like the embodiment of all the goofier aspects of the Amityville series, and I think that's what I enjoyed it. I mean, like the fact that just the mere fact that it is a lamp, and like even if I thought for a second about dropping this down, it gets to the scene of the kid with the chainsaw and instantly shoots like 5 points back up again because it's just amazing. And then like I just marvel for a moment about a movie where the villain is a killer lamp that is defeated by an old lady just strolling up and like chucking it out of a window. Like that's how it gets defeated. And also I'm looking at the box arts and I love the fact that they're just like, it's an Amityville movie. But what if we made people think it was a poltergeist movie? Like, let's just put that up there. Because, like, if you look at the poster, it very clearly is Carol Ann and Kane. It's like, let's see if we can confuse people. And I love that. This is the... All right, coming in at number 4. We're getting just shy of the top 3 here. And this was still pretty close since this movie made it here by only 2 points. And with 191, it's Amityville 3D, or possibly just Amityville in 3D, or maybe it's Amityville 3 in 3D. I don't know, whatever. But this is the first film on the whole roster to not get any dead last votes. No one had this in their dead last spot, but it did get 2 11th place votes. And it also never got first place. but it got 2 second place votes. So 2 times it was second to last, and 2 times it was second to first.
Yeah, I can't get into it. And I guess it's because like who's in the movie, like I can't like take any of them seriously. Like even if it's a corny movie, if the actors are like going, serious about it's fine. But like I just see like Meg Ryan and like Aunt Becky, whatever her name is, and the special effects save it for me. I think it's the same people that did Poltergeist, actually. So the special effects look great. And there's like the whole thing at the end. It's like the ring where there's like a well in the basement. It's the first corny one too. Like the first two are like so serious, and then you watch the third one, and it's just like, whoa, here's a frisbee. Whoa, here's a yo-yo. It's just I couldn't get into it. I wish I could. I want to like it. I want to like it more, but
I feel like I used to have a much higher opinion of this one than I do now. But I have it in 6, which I think is okay. And I do still enjoy this, but I think I really like the ending of this one because I think that there's a big chunk in the middle where it's kind of like, okay, can something happen here? But there's enough happening for me to like think it's a good movie, and I have a good time watching it. There's enough memorable things going on. Like this will always be the movie that throws a fish at me. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say that this is like I think one of the only ones of the original core ones to really attempt any sort of continuity because it wasn't meant to be a sequel to the first two, and like it literally had to say that on the poster art. But then you've got the demon at the ending that is very obviously the demon from the ending of part 2. So they were also saying it was a sequel, so it doesn't really make any sense. But it's a good flick that I still do like it, and I don't know if you guys know. Did you guys know that you could have sex with a ghost?
I only knew about I knew you could have oral sex with a ghost because of Ghostbusters, but that's
Yeah.
all I knew.
True, that's true.
Tobin Spirit Guide has detailed information.
I agree with Paul. I find myself really, really wanting to like this movie. I think that's why I go so easy on it. I'm a little bit of a sucker for the 80s, bringing back the 3D craze. I'm a little bit of a sucker for Jaws 3D, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. And yeah, I like all the gags. I like the skeleton coming out of the car. It's got some fun aspects to it. I dig the cast. I like the concept as well. Yeah, I want to like it more than I do. I have this one, the Blu-ray. I find myself watching quite a bit, and then going, oh yeah, I don't like this one as much as I think I like this one. But yeah, overall, I think it's what I had it in 5th. That sounds about right. It's middle of the pack. You can do a lot worse than this movie.
First of all, I've always loved from a very young age guys like James Randi, the debunkers of hokum. I love that that one of the main characters is a paranormal investigator, but the way they actually are. I love that they give a psychic what they deserve, because all psychics deserve a hard, swift spanking for lying to bereaved people. And that alone made me really into it the first time I saw it. But what put this movie over the top into being one of my favorite Amityville movies was a few years back, the Blu-ray came out, and I had a 3D capable video projector. So I was able to watch it in 3D with the non-passive 3D glasses. So the 3D is super friggin' good on a 120-inch screen in my own living room. And having those outrageous 3D effects in full force in my face gave me a totally different appreciation of the movie. So yeah, it grew on me a ton because of that.
Do you know you could have sex with a ghost?
All right, here we go. Top 3 time. This is it, the big 3. And our third place movie jumped quite a bit since 3D had 191 points. And we go all the way down to 143, almost 50 points lower. And it's Amityville 1992, It's About Time. This one also never got put into dead last, but it did get one 11th place spot. But it was put into first place 6 times, 19% of the list.
Something got flip-flopped in my mind. This should be my number three. This absolutely should be my number three. And I'm willing to admit that now. I messed up the list while doing it. I adore this movie, actually. It should be my number three. It warms my heart so much that this movie got into the top three. I think that this movie is the perfect blend of goofy, what the heck were they thinking, and some really, really good ideas. There are just so many things you can rant about with this movie, including the boyfriend with the obviously huge slong getting pulled into the floor, to Dick Miller showing up randomly. The movie is fantastic, and yeah, it should not be at number 6 for me. It should absolutely overtake Amityville Dollhouse and be number 3. This is where it belongs.
Holy crap. I love this movie. It's just so insane. Like, it's just they throw everything at you. There's just no way to not love it. It's got a fun cast. It's this really weird setup. And like, sure, like it is a bit standard in terms of like, oh, it's a haunted house and blah blah blah. But then it like completely turns a corner. And like they're throwing like Nazi like spray paint and paraphernalia all over there. And I want to point this out. I want to talk about this for a minute because it has one of my favorite horror deaths ever. Like they set everything up with this lady on the street. Everything looks like this lady's going to be crushed by he's going to run over by these cars. And then you're like, oh no, well now she's going to get crushed by these rocks. And she avoids all of these things. And it looks like that's what's going to happen. And then no, she survives it. But then they have this hilarious Final Destination kind of moment where she's like killed by the bill of a giant stork statue. It's amazing.
I cannot tell you how amazed I am that it is this high on the list to other people, because as far as I knew, it was only me who absolutely friggin' loves Amityville 1992. It's About Time. But I think 1992 is such a perfect example of a great 90s horror movie from pre-Scream, before everything changed when Wes Craven got on the scene with that film. I love it. And I love how it disorients with the use of time, because the gag, like where he comes down the stairs and his stepmom is just like there with a cup of coffee and she's like, what happened to you? And he's like, well, what?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is so easy, but works so well. It would take no effort to do that gag making the film, but it works perfectly, threw me off, made me super curious. I could rave about the movie forever, but the damn house turns into a giant clock. That is just, love it.
It's incredible. I could watch this. I've probably seen it close to 100 times. I could watch it. You could put it on and I will watch it and enjoy it. When I was younger, I thought Rusty was so cool. I think his name's Rusty. I thought he was so cool. He's like a little metalhead guy, and like he ends up being the one that was like right. It's great. And like the house like getting infected, like the clock like drills into the mantle and like infects the house with gears. And dude, it's awesome. It's so awesome. There's like a scene where like the mirror like reaches through and plays with boobs or something like this. It's so ludicrous. The ending. I love movies that have like, I wouldn't even say a twist ending. It's like a paradox almost, like, and the best line in any Amityville movie, that last line that the mom says, best line in any Amityville movie.
What the hell was that all about?
It's about time, that's what.
All right, here we go, though. This is the big showdown. Only 2 movies left. That's right, 2 to go. And sort of the first 2. That's it. So that's it. And between number 3 and number 2, there was another nice gap of around 20 points. Coming in second place with 123 It's a movie I didn't expect to land this high, and it's the OG 1979 Amityville Horror. Again, no dead lasts, but one 11th place vote. But it was put into first place 9 times, 28% of the time. And look, I have this in ninth place, and I feel like I need to justify that more than I had to justify putting the Evil Escapes in third place. Um, and I know that I'm the outlier with this one, but God, do I not like this movie? I've always thought it was dull, right? I've always kind of just thought it was kind of boring and bland, just not that interesting. Um, like Margot Kidder's like single leg warmer is interesting, but a lot of the other movie is not. But I will also say my biggest problem with this movie is that I can't bring myself to distinguish between the movie and real life events. Like I can't, there's no way for me to watch this one and not think about the scam and the fake haunting stuff and all of the things that were actually happening in the house. So like when you're giving me this scene at the wedding when there's like missing wedding money and the movie's just like, oh no, the ghosts took the money. Like all I can think about is just like, just check George's pockets. So like I know that some people think that that whole take is dumb and like I've talked about this before on other videos and people are always just like, yeah, but this is just a movie. Just enjoy it for being a movie. But I can't do that. Like I've tried watching this movie and say just enjoy it for the movie that it is and I can't. So ninth place.
Man, people are gonna hate me for this. I think Margot Kidder is annoying. I just every time I see her in a movie, I can't. Um, but I mean, it's iconic. I mean, some of the stuff in the movie, it's just like the imagery of it. It's just awesome. It's just amazing. Like the windows themselves, like the glowing red eyes, the bleeding walls. Unfortunately, I can't remember actually if there's incest in this one or not, but the flies, there's like some really great scenes and some really great parts, but I don't know, it's just hard because I think with this list, there's just like better movies.
I agree with a lot of the criticisms of the original Amityville Horror, but the one thing it had going for itself is being just a really quintessential establishing of so much in the realm of haunted house horror movies. But what works against it more than anything is that it created a monster, which is a series of films far more hilarious and fun and interesting and rewatchable than itself. I do think it's a good movie, but I probably watch it the least of any of the ones I rewatch because, you see it and that's what you get. But when I watch, any of them, Amityville 1992, Amityville Dollhouse, I feel like I catch a lot more bizarre stuff and have a lot more fun with those. So I gave it 3 because I think it's a great film and an important film, and I did enjoy it. But, I couldn't possibly rank it any higher because it's not my favorite of all time, nowhere near.
It does suffer from the fact that it created a series that is maybe more entertaining than the movie itself, but I tend to disagree. I think that this movie overall is a fantastic watch. It's one that I revisit quite a bit. I think that if you were going to make a list of your the 10 best haunted house films, I think that this would absolutely make the list. I love Margot Kidder and James Brolin. I think that Margot Kidder with her pigtails is incredibly sexy. I don't even feel like I need to justify that. And I think that you kind of have to view it through the lens, the same way that I view the first Nightmare on Elm Street, where you really just have to watch it as a standalone movie without thinking about anything else. I think that it works best as its own film. I think it's a classic. It'll always be a classic.
I'm coming apart! Oh, Mother of God, I'm coming apart!
Well, all right then, here we are. Our number one movie, and the best Amityville movie that is not made by one of the people that you see up on your screen right here. That's right. This one had a mere 100 points, 23 lower than the original film. Only film left is Amityville 2: The Possession. This one did get one dead last vote, but it also got 10 first place spots, one more than the OG did, and 31% of the lists gave it first place.
It is so Euro trash without being European at all. It's in Long Island. Diane Franklin, phenomenal casting choice. As just the girl next door, except, instead she's the sister next door. The idea of covering the story of the DeFeo murders instead of the Lutzes, that's something I would agree with you very much on. I have to like the Amityville Horror, the first one, in spite of the Lutzes. But the DeFeo family, that's just such a sad story, and that's the real horror story of the Amityville Horror, is that family dying, and I think it just really went for it with no fear. I love the mentality of the movie. I love the cinematography, the music, the seedy dirtiness, the needing a shower when it's over that I feel is what makes Amityville 2: The Possession so freaking great. And I love that a lot of people gave it their first spot. That's so awesome.
The only way I think that you can make Amityville better is if you bring in Eurotrash. You bring in an Italian exploitative director who made just, crazy European Italian drive-in films, and you say, go nuts with it. And he brings in, the incest aspect, sexual violence, which is really big in Italy. It's a dark, dour, just mean-spirited film. And then the ending is still just so mean-spirited. It's like, yep, okay, even though he was possessed, he's going to jail. Everybody loses. I have a phrase that I always say with Italian horror films. It's like Italian horror directors are telling you a bedtime story, and they say, everyone dies, the world is worse off, now go to sleep. That's the way the movie ends, and it's perfect.
Yeah, it's hard. It was hard to choose. This movie is amazing. It doesn't surprise me that it came in first. It's everything they both said about it, the cinematography, it's beautifully shot. The special effects are incredible. The acting is wonderful. I think it's probably the most terrifying Amityville movie, but it's also just like heartbreaking. It's so brutal and it like unflinching, and like there's a scene, God, it's wonderful. The scene where he's walking down the stairs with the gun. It's a great movie. The face breaking apart. Oh my God, it's so good. Oh yeah, it's very good.
I'll wrap it up by saying that this was my number one pick as well. And this is my favorite Amityville movie. And this is what I want from this series. This is what I'm looking for from these movies. If you're not going to give me one of the haunted objects, then give me this. Give me a haunted house movie that is just taking no prisoners and throwing a bunch of crazy stuff at me, including some really wild practical effects and transformation stuff that doesn't really factor into it thematically, but who cares? It's awesome. Like it's awesome. And plus, the movie actually goes out of its way to not make it reality. They changed the characters' names. They changed the events. They even changed the time frame of when it all happens. Yeah, does this one just throw a random incest subplot into it for no reason? Sure it does. Does it suddenly decide to be an Exorcist ripoff about three-quarters of the way through? Sure it does. But I don't care. It's everything that I want from this franchise. It's everything I want from this series. And it is wonderful, and I'm really happy that it's number one. I'm happy that my first place pick is the number one spot. So there you have it. There are 12 Amityville movies and the rankings of them. So let's take a look at our final roster and see how this played out. That looks pretty much what I kind of expected, I guess. I don't know what I expected from this, but there's a couple of things in here that I personally would have a little higher or a little bit lower. I'm not mad about anything here. I mean, I might be a little bit mad about the OG being second place, but I'm not like, I get it. I do get it, I guess. But but there you go. I want you guys in the comments to tell me what is your number one. Which of these would you want to be higher? Which one of these would you want to be lower? Tell me that down below. And just remember that you can actually participate in these rankings every single month by going to patreon.com/movie timelines and becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month. We do a list every single month and we rank them up. And this month we had Amityville movies. Some months you'll get something better. Sometimes you'll get things worse. But this was Amityville. And you know what? It was really excited to be able to do this with you guys on my panel. It's really exciting to have people that are sort of in the Amityville world that actually appreciate Amityville stuff to kind of talk about this. And I'm really glad that you took time out of your day and your weekend to come and do this with me. So thank you very much for being a part of this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Also, if you guys can, leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And check out my Patreon page. These guys over here are patrons and they help support this channel. And you can too. And just by watching the videos. Whatever you like. But thanks a lot. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.